In this lesson, we'll be creating this easy landscape in watercolours, and this would be the perfect project if you're a beginner. Before we start though, if you love art, then you might like to look at the other lessons at our website at www.montmart.net. We also have our Facebook and Instagram pages attached, as well as to our art club, The Creative Connection. Using a 300 GSM watercolour pad in A3, but of course a smaller size sheet can be used. This is the image in the PDF and it has all of the key elements shown. The first step is to faithfully reproduce the image onto a clean sheet. In all honesty, this is the most challenging part. This project is quite simple and the painting can be done in about 30 minutes, as it's all simplified. In fact, you don't really have to put in all the information, but it's helpful to have some guidelines when you're first starting out. For materials, I'm using the Montmart Airtight watercolour palette, and for paints, the 12-piece watercolour paint set is being used. We'll also need some tissues to vary the sky coat, and a number of brushes in the Gallery Series brush sets. The exact sets are outlined in the PDF. First step is to dampen the paper with the large flat. This is so the paint dries slower when applied, and the occurrence of hard edges is less inclined as a result. Once the water is laid on, create a wet mix of Prussian blue and lay it over the sky area up to the mountains. Get it on fairly quickly. I then darken the mix with a touch of crimson and lay this into the top. I let the coat partially dry and then pat the coat with some tissue paper. This adds some variance to the coat. If you do this while it's really wet, it removes more colour and your clouds are brighter. You can also lift out pigment by charging a clean brush with water and soaking the area. You can then blot up the colour. I really just meant to demonstrate the technique and ended up taking out a little bit too much, but you get the point. I then add some yellow ochre to give the clouds a little colour. Next, mix up a light grey from black and a fair amount of water. Don't pre-wet the paper and lay this into the farthest mountains. Next, darken the mix with more black and a touch of yellow ochre and lay it into the next set of mountains. Next, darken the mix a little more and lay it into the mountain closest to the viewer. I'm using a wider brush as obviously it's a larger area to cover. I then lay in a dark mix to suggest cast shadows falling on the mountain. These shapes tend to be acute angles rather than curved shapes, so a flat is good for this. While I have this tone, I lay it into the second mountain range. I then lighten the tone by adding water and lay some cast shadows into that farthest mountain. I use sap green on the farthest bank on the right and get this colour on as quickly as I can. To suggest the distant tree line, I hold the flat brush on its side and take the colour up into the second bank. I darken the colour with some Prussian blue and lay the next bank in. I have to, at this point, apologise for my head constantly coming into the shot and for my unkempt hair. Ah well. The bank directly beneath this bank is closer to the viewer and some tree silhouettes can be suggested. The next bank is closer still and as such will be darker. So create a mix from sap green, Prussian blue and black and lay the trees in with a fine round brush. Create each tree with a vertical line, then concave downward strokes moving down the line on both sides of it. Remember, trees will overlap and obviously will be differing sizes. Again, I get it on as quick as possible. So far, we have used very few colours and this has taken shape really quickly. Just looking at it now in editing, I can see the sky looks a little too orderly and consistent, so a light wash could be added to make it a little less defined. Anyway, I lay on more colour into the bottom of the trees and take it up to the horizon line and vary the tone to quickly add as much interest as I can. Once I'm happy with the trees, I use the sap green from the first bank and loosely lay it into the foreground. I try to create as much texture as I can by again varying the tone. I darken the green with a touch of crimson and lay it into the lower right portion of the painting. I then create a watery mix of burnt umber and lay it into the tree trunk. I add the boughs and then lay in a darker tone into the right hand side and blend it into the umber. This obviously conveys that the light source is coming from the left side. Once the trunk is all laid in, I can put in the foliage. I use a mop brush to do this and use the greens I have in my palette already mixed. Well, thanks for watching. Remember, you can share your creative projects on social media using #MontmartreArt. We look forward to your creations and we'll see you next time.